Chapter 2, The Conquest. Kino Amark. Mayo left, and I was back to hiding under my bed so that in case the ones who took my mother came back, they would not so easily find me. I was worried about mother. We only have each other. Not to gripe, but it would be nice to have someone else who could help us in times of danger. What would I do if I lost her? I cannot lose her. I just cannot. To me, mother seemed so fragile, like anything could hurt her, and I would be dead before I let anything happen to her. A little too late for that, I thought. My eyes began to water. And yet, I knew my mother was smart. I bet that if anybody were pursuing her, she would have avoided them, and she may very well be on her way back to me. All I had to do was wait. But what if she does not come back for me? I shivered at the thought. She definitely would. I was sure of it. She would not have allowed us to be separated. What if she was dead? She cannot be. We had a connection. If she were gone, I believed in all my heart that I would feel it. Even when I close my eyes and try to picture her face, calmness still seeps inside my heart as though she was assuring me that she was just out there, waiting for the right moment to come back home. That night, I slept under the bed and prayed that she would come home soon. For now, the best I could do was secure a hiding place for my mother and me, and yet, even with these thoughts, I felt queasy. The cupboards were the first places I checked when I woke up. I needed some food and trail water to take with me on my journey. While I was still under the bed, I made up my mind about hiding in Ghost Town. Mother was still missing. I had to see Master Andoni, tell him that my mother and I needed a place to hide, and perhaps persuade him to take us in. With barely anyone setting foot in the ghost town, it would be perfect for us to hide from the Emperor. If I had to, I would beg Master Andoni and Mistress Laren to convince them to let us stay in the village. I had no other choice. If they would not agree, my mother and I would have to keep on hiding in the woods. I would make her understand that there was no need to fear the ghosts, that they were not what she thought they were. The ghosts were Akeans, too, as much flesh as we were. I did not want to break my promise to Master Andoni, and I hoped I would not have to share the secret with my mother anytime soon. I went back to my room and searched my closet for a blanket that could somehow disguise me. I pulled at the bottom drawer and looked under a pile of clothes. Mother had a knack for keeping everything in its proper place, and if she saw me now, the way I was messing up my drawers, she would have thrown a fit. I missed mother. I had never been away from her for more than one day, and I did not know when she would return. I had to get used to the idea somehow. This is why it was of the utmost urgency that I talked to Master Andoni. I had to convince him to help me. I must. A brown blanket lay atop the other sheets. It was worn out and had holes all over it. Some were stitched closed by mother, but the others were already too big to be fixed. I pulled it out and tested it around my shoulders like a cape. I was sure mother would not be too mad if I ripped this into a cape. I would need to cover my head also, so I grabbed a pair of scissors and cut a part of the blanket into a hood. I stitched it several times and tested it on my head. On the third try, the hood and the cape fit, and I knew then that I was ready. I closed the drawer and stood up. It was time to go. I tied the blanket around me. I could not go invisible, but if I wore a brown cloak and moved slowly in the forest and mountains, maybe I would be more difficult to spot, and I could get to the ghost town undetected. I went back to the kitchen and took the food and water that I had prepared earlier. When all was ready, I headed out through the back of the cottage. The sky was still dark, and it was the right time to start my journey. The cool breeze blew on my face, and I had to clutch the blanket tighter. At least it was serving more than one purpose. With one last glance at our cottage, I started my trek toward the foot of Mount Ricus. I thought it was the cold weather at dawn that made my eyes water, but as I started running, the tears streaked my cheeks, and my heart thumped inside my chest. I wondered if mother would ever return home alive.